Thank you to the Decoding Nature sponsors, Five Rivers MetroParks Foundation, Cox Arboretum Foundation, Wagner Subaru, and Wegersen Gardens Foundation.
After learning about some of the people who've made MetroParks possible, I'm more eager than ever to explore what our parks have to offer. I'm headed to meet up with Tom Hissong to do some birding at Spring Run Conservation Area.
This area has been birded by a lot of people over the last number of years since it became the mitigation bank. There's grasslands here, there's wetlands, there's some wooded areas. Somewhere around 200 species of birds have been documented for here.
Yeah.
And a lot of people like myself, on my cell phone, I do what's called eBird.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
Yeah. So if I come out here, I start a list, and at the end of my walk, I go through, it's through Cornell Laboratory of Ornithology.
Yeah.
So it gives them an idea. So somebody can go to the Cornell Lab site and do some search, and here comes a black swallowtail.
Oh yeah.
Black swallowtail butterfly.
Yeah, I love it.
Yep. If I'm not outside every day, this is what gives me energy.
This is your recharge.
This is my recharge. It's my energy. What do you see?
I was just, I thought I was on a great horned owl, but no such luck.
Who?
A who?
The camera guy's laughing at that one, you know. He says, yeah, I've never heard that before.
That guy right there.
It's time for us to decode the habitats and ecosystems that thrive within Five Rivers MetroParks. Grace Deach meets up with us to share the importance of the mitigation bank and the wetlands.
Spring Run Conservation Area is in Trotwood, which is just on the west side of Dayton. It's made up of about 550 acres in total, but it's kind of broken up into two different sites. So we first acquired what we're standing in right now, which is the Great Miami Mitigation Bank. We acquired it in 2008. And then we acquired the old Larch Tree Golf Course, which is just to our north here, in 2014. So combined 550 acres of restored natural area.
What is a mitigation bank?
So a mitigation bank is a way for developers to compensate for impacts to an aquatic resource, like say a wetland. If a developer was building, a housing community nearby within this watershed and they had to impact a wetland, they could mitigate for those impacts here by purchasing some credits from the Great Miami Mitigation Bank. The idea is that a wetland is impacted off-site, one is enhanced or created in close proximity so that those species, can maybe have somewhere to thrive elsewhere, or that same ecological benefit is still serving the community. That revenue source has allowed us to reinvest that into the site, offset our costs and conservation projects throughout the district. To date, so far, the mitigation bank here has generated almost $2.5 million.
Why are wetlands so important?
Well, they're a very unique and sensitive habitat. So there's a lot of species that call wetlands home that are considered obligate. And on top of, what kind of habitat qualities it provides for species, it's also important for water quality, slowing down stormwater. It's like the kidneys, right, of the earth. The soil within wetlands is really what makes a wetland. It's all in the soil. It's dark, it's rich, and it's very wet for a long ways down. There's been a couple other really great wetland projects too. A few years ago, Parks and Conservation staff restored some wetlands and planted some prairie at Germantown. That's been a great project, and we've already seen a lot of great benefits come from that, along with a brand new trail system through there. And then just last year, our staff also restored a vernal pool at Sugar Creek to protect a breeding population of salamanders there. So those have been two wonderful projects that really preserve our natural heritage that people will be enjoying for years.
Our next stop is to learn about the prairies with Chris Peon. We head to Possum Creek, where the land was once home to the Oregon Forest Park. Remains from a pool, a dance hall, and 3 streetcars are hidden on the forest floor.
I am so excited today to be here at Possum Creek. This place is fabulous. There's so much to see and do, lakes and ponds and whatnot, but most of all, this fabulous prairie
What can you tell me about this prairie?
This is a fabulous prairie. So this is a restoration project. This was not here before. This is a planted prairie that was planted in 1980. When you arrive at the park, you go through the entrance drive takes you right through the middle of the prairie, and it's a real feeling of arrival at the park.
So we're surrounded by these tall plants that look like sunflowers, but they're not, right?
They're not. This is a compass plant. A really cool thing to know about this plant and a lot of the prairie plants that you see around you is that their root systems are really extensive. And so while you can see this plant is probably 7 feet tall, the roots of this plant are probably 15 feet deep. And so they have these really extensive root systems that allow them to be really drought resistant. Oddly enough, they allow us to manage them with fire. Prescribed fire is one of the ways that we manage these prairies.
Right, that's a typical thing with prairies, these usual burnings.
Right, it completely clears this whole landscape of all of the plant that you see up top, and it releases all of that nutrient down to the soil where it can be taken back up by those roots and create this again every year.
Here it is, the royal catchfly.
Yep, so one of the showier of the prairie plants that we have here. Prairies are really important to pollinators. Butterflies, bees, wasps. The prairies are really important to bird species, both for food sources, nesting habitat, and cover.
Speaking of pollinators, you have a demonstration garden here, right?
We do. The demonstration garden is a garden that's used for programming. All of the produce that's grown there is donated to people who are in need of fresh, healthy food. We donate through a group called Access to Excess, and in 2020, throughout MetroParks, there was a donation of more than 5,500 pounds of fresh food.
Wow. With so many pretty flowers out here, I imagine people want to pick them.
Sure they do.
It's probably a big no-no, right?
It is a big no-no. So we definitely want people to come here and enjoy the prairie and see all these beautiful flowers, but leave them alone. They're important here in the park. They're an important part of the habitat that's created here, so we don't want people to take them. And we certainly want to keep people on the trail so that they don't do damage to this natural habitat.
Before I go, Chris, I have to know where you keep the rubber band for the giant slingshot.
Well, I'll tell you, it does kind of look like a slingshot. So it was a sculpture that was donated to Five Rivers MetroParks in appreciation for a community member named Gene Woodhull, who was instrumental in getting us started here at Five Rivers MetroParks. Like you said before, there's so much to see and do here at Possum Creek. Fishing and paddling and hiking and birding. There's history for you to see in the Oregon forest. It's just a really wonderful park, and we're happy to be able to share it with you.
We've learned about wetlands and prairies. Now it's time to meet up with Meredith Cobb, who oversees reforestation efforts at Five Rivers MetroParks.
Here we are at Cox Arboretum. This is one of my favorite metro parks. I mean, horticulture and trees. What can we talk about with the trees as far as reforestation goes? I'm thinking about the emerald ash borer and the crisis there.
Yeah, so the emerald ash borer came to Ohio in about 2010, and it only attacks ash trees. In metro parks as a whole, that's about 3,000 acres of forest that we thought we were going to lose.
Yep.
There is a treatment that we do. We started with 600 trees back in 2011, and we have to treat them every other year. And we're sitting at about 80% survival for those 600 trees.
What can you tell me about the Barbara Cox Center for Sustainable Horticulture?
So this is a set of greenhouses that have been here, but with the Barbara Cox grant, we were able to update them so that they were more sustainable. The glass is more double paned, so it helps on heating and cooling. There's new irrigation systems, and there's actually a water cistern below ground that recycles the water. And this is where we grow all of the trees for replacing the ash, as well as other native herbaceous plants like prairie plants as well. Volunteers do every step of the project from collecting the seeds each fall. They come in and clean the seeds. We do a float test for them, so the ones that float to the top aren't good, but the ones that sink are the ones that we keep. They go into a fridge to mimic like winter for a seed. And then in early spring, like February, we start potting them in the greenhouse and getting them to germinate. And then all through the summer, we're going into larger containers. And then volunteers come back and they plant those trees out in the wild as well.
I'm enjoying the shade under these trees, so I know they're useful. Tell me more about what good trees do.
Trees are amazing. I mean, besides the fact that they provide shade and they're beautiful, they also take up carbon. They release oxygen that we breathe. They help stormwater and floods. They hold the soil in place. If you have one planted near your house, it helps with cooling costs. They provide lots of food for wildlife. There's a million different types of insects and small mammals that are dependent on the leaves and the seeds from trees.
So I consider myself a tree hugger, right? I love trees, love nature. What are the must-see trees when you go to a metro park?
The Three Sisters at Sugar Creek are definitely top of my list. The pedestal oak at Wagerson, and then I have a favorite cottonwood at Germantown that took, I think, 7 of us to get our arms around it.
Really?
It's right next to Twin Creek and it's just huge.
Awesome.
So much of the natural beauty that surrounds us is made possible by thoughtful, intentional decisions that can serve and protect the habitat within our community. On the next episode of Decoding Nature, we take a hike and learn about the natural surface trails that traverse the Miami Valley.
Special thank you to the Cox Arboretum Foundation for their support of Decoding Nature. Until next time, stay outside and enjoy your Five Rivers MetroParks.